other.
There you go. You're all right.
I am? Okay, great. Okay. And so I want to do a quick review of what we discussed last week, setting up the gatekeeper. And I want to just hit some bullet points so that you don't have to try to remember everything. Young man, do you have a book? Here's a book you don't have one?
No.
You want one?
Yeah.
Get her a new one. You can borrow this one.
Okay.
You can have that, and the books are $17. But you can have a complimentary copy. This young man back there. Okay. So it talks about mindfulness being not just aware of the present moment or what is happening. The bare awareness, that's an aspect. But let's say we run it from A to Z. First is remembering something, remembering why we're here, remembering what we're doing at this moment that we sit. So you have the combination going all the way from remembering something to being in the present moment and with bare awareness. And so if you're at any one of those extremes, you're going to accomplish according to how fixed one is to one to either polarity. So even in the initial aspects of the practice, there's this broadening, there's this widening, there's this development of mind, so that mind becomes less and less fixed on anything. It's like setting up the conditions, and then when I say not being attached to the outcome, you understand what I mean, not being so fixed around any certain or particular thing happening. And so it's almost like embarking on a journey of discovery, except this is about self-discovery. Someone is rolling their attention or folding their attention inward. And most of our attention, 99.9%, is based on outward, how we interact in the world, who we interact with in the world, what we interact around. Everything is geared towards an outward movement. So it's really difficult for us to even imagine what is going inside. What's inside of me? Blood and guts and bone? I mean, what is inside? What does that even mean? And so it takes some observation to recognize that we actually live inside all the time, and we make projections and kind of create an outside based on what's going on inside, but not having been aware that we're constantly creating our reality and therefore our response to our reality, then we are always tapping, but tapping in the wrong place. And so this is a sort of a reminder for us that in the Buddhist sutras, the Pali word sati is used for both awareness and for memory. So if we pay attention to what we're doing, this creates an awareness or an imprint in our mind, and it becomes easy to remember. So in the beginning, for those who are stuck on one extreme, like the extreme of bare awareness, he told the story about imagining the gatekeeper and giving an instruction to the gatekeeper to be mindful of burglars, okay? And it says, and when you return home, your loving kindness suddenly vanishes when you find that your home has been burglarized. Didn't I tell you to be mindful? You scream at the gatekeeper. And mind says, but I was mindful. I gave attention to the burglars as they broke in. I was clearly attentive as they walked out with your plasma TV and state-of-the-art sound system. I mindfully watched them go in several times, and my mind did not wander as I observed them taking all your antique furniture out. And so this is an example of what happens with us when we are fixed and fastened around just bare awareness. There is some action that's required. You know, we're not just like letting go for a while. He said breathing in and breathing out, we train. So there's a training that is taking place, but we are our own trainer. That's so marvelous to know that we are our own trainer. And if we leave this training up to someone else or something else, we can rest assured that the training will not occur, because it's the kind that only we can give to ourselves. And how does it show up? It shows up when one thinks they know. They can spout off, all kinds of suttas and all kinds of high, lofty talk. But when it comes to actually having the tenacity, the ability, the commitment, to do things in their life, they find that they don't have it. And so then a confusion sets in, because intellectually we really do get it. But by not having our muscles exercised by reason of use, we can't even pick up a 1 pound weight. And so we get thrown then into a sense of confusion and I can't accomplish this, or maybe that nobody can, because if I can't, certainly nobody else can. So that's how the mind, and then it just devolves and goes its own way. So the first thing is letting up or lightening up of what we already know and what we already do, if that hasn't been enough. Now, if it's been enough, you just keep on with that. You can't argue with success. But if you haven't reached your goals, if you haven't been able to step into what has been encouraged is absolutely attainable, then we still have work to do. That's all. So to fight and hold and grasp around, what we already have, because that's all we got, and that's what I got. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If you really want to attain, there has to be that weakening from the tightening around what we already know. It does not make us inferior. It does not make us less than. It does not. It actually cleaving around what we already know cuts us off from knowing more. And when we're clear about that, then our feet run swiftly to see what else has to be said around the topic, or what else has to be offered around a practice, or what else, we don't have to be afraid that we're being challenged or what we already know is being threatened, but we can open, and in that way, mind becomes vaster, heart becomes oceanic. And that's the object of all of this. It's not about our dancing or marching to anybody else's tune. It's having the capacity to really be the best that we can be, and that takes going inside and one actually becoming their own teacher. So we have these guides that say, well, go that way and see what happens with that. Go this way, see what happens with that. Stop doing this and try this and see what happens with that. Do this and add that to it and see what happens with that. So it's an exploratory journey. And it's what gives charm and gives life to the spiritual path, to this journey, this great exploration. And so he says, would you be happy with such an explanation of mindfulness? So you have to know that it's more than bare attention. You have to remember the instructions and perform them with diligence. So if the gatekeeper sees a thief trying to break in, then he must stop the burglar or else call 911. But do something. Don't just observe or just watch. In the same way, a wise meditator must do more than just give bare attention to whatever comes into his mind and goes out of his mind. You saw it arise, so you know it's not your thought because you saw the thought come. And there's an abiding of the thought for a while, and then you watch the thought go. So you could spend your whole meditation watching things arise, abide, and pass off. And there may be some bare awareness around that, but it's not useful awareness around that. And so this is how to be better at that. But some people don't even see the thoughts arising. They don't know until they just watch the whole movie inside. And then when they came out of that, or either they went and just dropped off into a chasm, just dead, just nothing there, I remember when Panyadeep and I were studying with a master from a Shaolin temple, and he was a contemporary of Jet Li. And he says, oh yeah, the whole world loves Jet Li, but those of us in the monastery that work with Jet Li, we know Jet Li a different way. Yes, he's great to you all, but there were many Jet Lis in there, you know. So we were studying with him, like we wanted to like really get good with this. And this is when we were into a lot of Tai Chi and had given up martial arts for more internal practice and so forth. And so one day I came to him so excited, and I said, oh, I was really gone somewhere. You know, I said, I went deep in, because I saw the layers of me coming out. Yes, he said, and I heard the whole time, And it like just bust my bubble, because that was, for me, something that how could I sit there with it and got so calm, so still. And then there was absolutely nothing there. Not a great clarity, because I misunderstood what the goal was. And I did not know what to do when I was approaching the goal. So like I just completely missed it. You had to take that leap, and I just dropped into the chasm. So I didn't read that part. When I was reading the thing, like if you want to get enlightened, if you follow my method, the Buddha said you can accomplish that in 7 months. Not even 7 months, you can accomplish it in 7 days. And I'm like, oh, this is the practice for me right here, because I've been at this for 30 years. This is it. And now it's, 15, 16, 17 years later. No, 19 years later, and I'm still, But here's the thing. In that journey, there is something I did know, something I did learn. So you have to stay aware to know what you are learning, what you are coming to know. And you hold on to these. That's part of how the mind gets stretched to become oceanic, because these things start to go in there. Some things come out, some things go in. And we start to then hold a different view gradually as we're putting in the wisdom of the practice and letting go of what has offended the practice, or what has hindered us, that we didn't run well. And so he talks about instructing the gatekeeper at the beginning. So when one sits, it says, tell the gatekeeper something like, now is the time to be aware of the present moment. So actually, I would call it, I'm setting an intention, if you don't know where you're going, how will you know when you get there? So setting an intention of what I'm going to do in these next 15 minutes, or this next 30 minutes, or this next hour, or this next 2 hours, or the next 8 hours, or the next day, or the next week. I'm setting an intention, so that as I get about all the other things that I have to do, I will put it up against my intention to determine what I will do. And when I'm not feeling like it, it says like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It really is, so you start off with this intention, but after a while, you have forgotten the intention. But you can become aware that there is something that can be aware of what's happening inside, other than your critical thinking mind, your surface, your closest to out here mind. And as you are firmly under the impression, if you're not already confident, that, or you're going to take that as your confidence until it has been proven to not be so. If you don't know something, so you can take it by faith in the sense of, I will do this, and it will prove to me whether it's so or not so. So in the beginning, you might try to, that doesn't work, But how long did you work at that? Even a child will spend maybe weeks trying to learn how to tie a shoestring. You try to meditate 3 times, 15 minutes each time, that doesn't work, So it's about how much effort you're willing to put into this, Think of other trainings that you've done in your life to excel at something that was important to you. How much time you put into developing and fostering and repairing a relationship that's breaking. How much, we can always put a lot of effort into everything, but when it comes into this, like we don't get it really quick, like I'm gonna look for something else. And so we through lack of volition, setting an intention, and committing to it for a period of time, we miss the mark. So if you do that, you set your intention. Now is the time to be aware of the present moment. I mean, the Buddha said, he sat there, I said, I'm sitting, I'm not getting up. If I die, if I perish, let me perish. I'm not getting up from here until I come to know something. And he said, and then his mind went back to when he was a little child and he was in the field gleaning, and he saw how, nobody was instructing him in this way. He wasn't practicing. We need to get rid of that whole word, because I think it takes us into a direction that is artificially contrived. I haven't come up with a better word for it because everybody knows what practice means. But I'm wondering, do we really know what practice means in a spiritual sense? It's nothing more than having a volition and sitting with your intention until you accomplish. Otherwise, it is just practice. But at some point, we want to be able to get out and play in the game, the real game. So we shouldn't think about practice. We should practice, but we shouldn't think of it so much as practice. When one is coming home to oneself, I don't call that practice, do you? And so holding this great high hope in this way, that I am coming to know who I am, what I am. Coming to know oneself is what this is all about. And then you can walk fearlessly in the world. You can step into any environment, any room, with any level of cast of people, any economic situation, any racial situation, you can walk anywhere, fearless like a tusker in the woods. But without it, and without knowing oneself from the inside out, we're overrun with anxiety and with fear and with trepidation and overly cautious and constantly worrying and constantly questioning and full of doubt and full of confusion. So only we can untie the knot. So this is in a way like the untying of a knot. So we're setting up our intention of what we're going to do for the next period of time, and don't let anything get in the way of that. You will find that if you do that, that when you start to stray off, the mind will bring you back, or will come back to the intention that you yourself set, the one that you set. We always talk about it like in a way like setting up like the mind against us, that unruly mind. I think we need to stop that. It may have become unruly because we haven't been there supporting it, giving it what it needs. Haven't been speaking to the mind based out of our dharmic experience. So we sit down with an adversary right away, and it just goes from bad to worse, but suppose we took a whole different approach to this. We would come to find out mind is more than what we thought. It's more than these thoughts that rise up based on information we take through our sense gates, what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and think. We would find that it is actually the core of our being, and we wouldn't think of it so much as mind or even consciousness as we think of it as the heart, the soul in the sense not of a continuing soul, but as the essential essence of our being. Now it's taking on a whole different quality, you see. The essential essence, that aspect of me that is not contained, curtailed, diminished, cut off, but that part of me that is, complete or without any particular substance. We start thinking of ourselves in a vaster, more expansive way. And then we start living up to, like how man thinks, so is he in this world. So we start living up to a whole different view or an image of who we are, what we're capable of, what kind of peace and rest there is for us. There is now a refuge. And where's that refuge? The refuge is in ourselves. How wonderful is that? Because I might not always have you with me locked arm in arm. People come and people go. People come with all kinds of glorious promises, and I like they're going to stay forever and this and that. And then they wake up one day and they're wanting to go, or they're unhappy with something, or they're confused, or and then what you going to do? Fall apart? So one has to be a refuge for oneself, and one has to gladden one's own heart and mind. And this is the way that we train to do this. And after a while, it doesn't matter what comes and what goes. It doesn't matter who comes into your life and goes out into your life. That your life is not dependent on others, And then we're in the position, we're wanting to do something for others that we haven't even done for ourselves, But when we start developing in this way, then we can now do for others what we can also do for ourselves. So sometimes we get it really good intellectually. We want to dole it out, But if one doles it out all that they have and they haven't come to a place of fullness for themselves, then they're left empty. And in a little while, there'll be the crash and the burn. And we see it happen all the time. And then we lose our confidence. And it's just that, the water glass was full, but half with water and half with air. But when we fill it up completely with water, then as we're continuing to let the spigot of the Dharma, flow into the glass, it will just spill over automatically on others. And then one is doing without doing, yet nothing goes undone. So then it becomes effortless. But in the beginning, it does take some effort. But we will move from effort to effortless. We will move from thought to non-thought. But it starts with right where we are. And we're plagued with thoughts all the time. So when we sit to be quiet, we don't even realize how many thoughts we have. But when we sit to be quiet, then we realize. Then we realize how many thoughts we have. There's a constant proliferation, making up stuff, and then taking it to be real. So one exercise that we gave was trying to set a time, and seeing what happens with that. So I said, like, when you're getting ready to sit down and meditate, say, I'm going to meditate for 15 minutes, and see what happens when you start to feel this, like, nudging, it's time, the 15 minutes or the 30 minutes has expired. Then you come out and you check and you see like you're really close to that. How many tried that this past week? Okay, wonderful. How many, did it work? Did it? Yes.
Works in a lot of different ways. Works for when you get up in the morning, like waking up, works for that. I've stopped actually setting a physical timer when I meditate, and if I have the time, sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 40 minutes, sometimes it's 20 minutes, but it's okay. I'm letting go of that aspect of it. Waking up in the morning is, pretty much, I'm going to set the alarm for 7, and I want to wake up at 6:30 to get my meditation. And today I woke up at 6, had a great meditation. The alarm killed it at 7. Forgot to turn the alarm off. So the problem with setting the alarm to get up as a backstop is that if you don't turn it off, then it can end up screwing up a really good meditation.
Yeah, and so and we can understand that if you're a monk meditating in the woods or at Heartwood, it doesn't matter maybe so much, because you're not like on a strict schedule. But if you're working and you have things you have to, like that's part of the downside of being a householder. There are upsides and there are downsides. I mean, it just is what it is. So sometimes you might have to set it, and yes, it destroys that. But how wonderful it is that when we come to what we call the real world, You know, like when we're out now interacting, after a while we start to find that there is another world, another realm that one can be in that is as real. Then it becomes even more real, more pertinent, and more delightful than all of the accomplishments we make in the world. And we start to see what used to be like such a great thing, like it has a little bit of drawback right there, you know. And we just recognize that, and we say, this is what I've chosen, and the good outweighs the bad, and I'm sticking with that. But we start to see these things, and we start to understand where we are with things, you know, which things count to us, how much they count. We found out that some things count more than we thought they did, now that we have apprehended them, you know. And so we start to make little shifts, like creating a little bit more time. How much more time can I give to this? You know, it's really beneficial to me. I'm seeing that it does something for me that I want to happen. Because I remember your problem was setting the clock and then having to get up and exercise, to get ready to meditate. And now, you know, just trying a different way, having the intention to meditate before you start anything, even your prized exercise, and then finding, yes, that's working. So that's wonderful. Did anybody else want to say anything? Yes.
I find that I'm more at ease when I'm not meditating as a result of it. If I drop something, I have to go to the other room because I need something, I'm much more just flowing. There's no emotion, oh shucks, I'm frustrated, oh darn. It's more like, okay, I go get it, or I pick it up, and I'm aware of just almost doing it in a meditative state. It's just a flow, and I'm not reacting like I used to.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's what our Sister Summer was saying to me yesterday. Like she didn't realize she has, you know, she's a systems analyst by profession within the education or something, and some other things too. But she's always, her final frontier, final tier was examining and fixer, sort of. You know, so she has all these ideas about how to fix, what needs fixing. And, you know, she says, like, I just didn't even realize it. But now I'm like, oh, okay, I can see that. And we don't have to address it right now. Right now might not actually be the time where the initial impulse was to jump right to it, just go into it, you know, all feet and all toes. But now being able to sit back. And this sitting, this willing to be vulnerable, actually, as one encounters the unknown. I mean, it's an awesome lover, for sure it is, you know. And, you know, when we're looking for someone, there is something that they give to us that nobody else can give, something that they bring to us, a way of being that really brings out the best in us. It's that, I hope one is building relationships like that, not like going to the dark side, picking with bad choices all the time. But as that happens, you'll find that this practice is that way. There's a sweetness around it. When he talks about the beautiful mind, or the state of mind called beautiful, and abiding in the Brahma Viharas, you know, it's a kind of sweetness, and it's a kind of way of being in the world that, you know, it doesn't matter whether you move fast or whether you move slow. It doesn't matter whether you think fast or whether you think slow, but whether that fast or slow movement or thinking is beautiful, you know, in that high state where it's not full of judging and condemnation and trepidation, all these kinds of things. And so we start doing things on the outside, like some of us do the really slow walking, lifting, shifting, placing, you know, and that's okay if that takes you where you want to go. But I generally don't walk like that. So if I need to find my beautiful mind in my walking, I'm working it out through my normal way of walking and still being aware of what's in my mind. You know, how the mind is approaching the moment, you know. And so otherwise we'll only be good when we're practicing, you know. But when we're in the moment in real life, we won't be able to muster it up. Okay, so then we go into this gatekeeper of stage 2. The goal is silence, right? Silence, like just more than just not talking. You know, we talk about being in noble silence when we're in these mindfulness retreats. You know, but we can see somebody talking all the way across the courtyard, and we get agitated because they're talking. I've had retreatants come to me and they're so agitated because they saw somebody talking. This is supposed to be a silent retreat, you know. And I'm like, your mind is not silent at all. And you do better to like just talk, at least in their talking. They're in a contented state. You're in an agitated state. You know, you can't even hear them. You just see mouth moving, you know. And so part of this for us is like really getting real about what is happening. What is happening, how I am structuring or creating my reality. What have I to do with someone else? We always interjecting because that's the mind going hither and thither. So silence also is a coming to stillness about what I think I see or I hear or I understand. Again, creating this vastness, so that one can encounter prajna. I mean, prajna constantly moving throughout our whole being and throughout all space and time. Prajna's moving, wisdom's moving. But if our radio is not tuned, and let's say it's traveling at 98.6 and we're at 98.7, we all get shh. That's all we get is mental chatter. But when we draw in this way, when we are open and receptive, now when we can get a sense of more than just what I think or what I know, then we start like in the old time when you ride with radio, you get a little stream of music and then it goes back to shh. Then you get another little stream of music and you're like trying to work that dial to get right on that, you know, and then it's your favorite song and you know like you getting ready to go out of range because the shh starts intermingling with the song. You start driving a little bit slower because you wanted to finish the song. You know, if you keep your 70 miles an hour, you know, the song's you're going to miss half the song. All these things we do. Also in meditation. You know, we have to recognize when we are there thwarting our own efforts, you know, because this little yummy thought came up and like, you know, I'm going to stop thinking about this in a minute, or I'm just going to finish and put a period at the end of that sentence. Then I'm going to go back to my objective. And that's where the gatekeeper says, no, that's not what we're doing right now. You know, put a peg in that. Stay right here. Stay right here. And the sweeter it gets, the more we want to stay right here. And we want to stay right here. Like I want to think about that, and I want to stay right here is the next stage. So now we get torn, you know, whether I should just watch. If we really want to engage it, then we call ourselves doing bare awareness. We want to watch it arise or by it, but we're actually entertaining it, right? And watching it depart. But we're like, oh yeah, I was in bare awareness. I was watching that, you know. So forget the watcher. The Buddha never said anything about the watcher. That's a way to kind of help people kind of move to the next step, but it's like an in-between step. And if you were walking, you know, picking up your left foot, and then to go further, you have to put down the right, I'm wrong under here. You have to put down the right foot, right? But if you hold up that right foot and never put it down, you're just going to stand in place until you fall over. And so in that way, you know, when we keep coming back to what our intention is, at stage 2, it's just silence. So when he says abandoning covetousness and grief for the world, when one sits down, you can see if you got this covered, if you're working at this, you hit off stage 1 and stage 2 before you even get started. So that's like being able to, running a relay, and you were able to take off before the shot goes off to start. Like you got a head start, you know, so, and with no penalty, you know. So he said, I'm showing you the quick way. I like his way, it is the quick way. establishing mindfulness, first setting aside covetousness and grief for the world. You know, first considering oneself not a self, but just a amalgamation of form, feeling, perceptions, consciousness, and thoughts. First, just thinking even of the body, because the body is going to start talking to you right away, you know, like when it has to sit in a certain position more than a minute. When we're talking or we're busy, we don't even recognize that we're uncomfortable. And when we sit still and start to quiet the mind, suddenly we're like just totally uncomfortable. I mean, an itch is will just about kill us if we don't like scratch that little itch. We can't even go through an itch. I was watching a movie last night. Maybe that was the news. Nope, wasn't the news. And where a guy took a rifle, like a AK-47, and hit the guy in the mouth. You know, it was one of these terrorist things. Of course, that was an American who did that, but same thing. And I felt such pain in my mouth and in my face, you know, just seeing it on television. I said, you know, Pannavati, I can't even imagine the incredible amount of pain that must be, you know. And one bashes, it's so hard, it breaks all your teeth. I can't imagine. I said, TV can't even portray the actual horror of that. That's why we think, oh, it ain't so bad. You know, we do a little bit of torture here, a little bit of torture there, to get what we need out of them, to keep America safe, you know. And we don't even realize the impact. But if one considered others as oneself, and so we should remain sensitive to this, otherwise we get desensitized, you know, and we start doing things in the name of rightness that we wouldn't want done to ourselves. But it takes, you know, one by one, and then two by two, and then group by group. But we'll never have it group by group if we haven't had it two by two and one by one. And so we have to hold out hope for that kind of coming forth. That means sometimes we have to stand alone. That's why this is a training that teaches us how to be able to be alone with our truth. Whether others, you know, congratulate us on it, agree with us, you know, or even think likewise. We have to hold a standard. We can't say like this is tough times and bring the standard down to the level of our fear. But we have to hold the standard. Now, we may not always get there with the standard, but what I'm saying is don't diminish the standard, or we will become brutish and we will have a hell realm mentality. And so we're always remaining hopeful, building up in our mind a kind of sweetness. So he says that imbue the mind with thoughts of loving kindness. He says, and when you do that, hatred will be uprooted. Maybe not for all time, maybe not for all today, maybe only for the next hour. But the more we abide in that space, the more we're retraining the mind in that little bit of time to hold our world and our existence in a softer way, with a little bit more compassion, with a little bit more hope, with a little bit more inspiration. And the mind begins to shift just a little bit. But you got to do it all the time. Like repetition. We don't like brush our teeth today and say, oh, we're not going to do it for the next week, you know. And when we brush our teeth, we like have a way that we brush and we brush and we brush and we brush. And you know, we don't say, oh, today I'll do this side. Tomorrow I'll get the other side. But we go through the whole rigmarole every single time. Never get tired of it if we want people to be around us, and we just keep going. So in this way, we do these things, and after a while, it doesn't become like we're doing so much. It's like, oh, knock that off in no time. And you'll find that in your meditation, you'll like rip through some of these because not only the repetition, but because the mind is starting to shift and lean in a certain direction. And you're replacing old tendencies with new tendencies, and old ways of thinking with new ways of thinking. And one will find without even effort, they're becoming gentler with themselves, sweeter with themselves, more accommodating, recognizing they're not perfect, I'm not perfect, here we are. What shall we do about that? I can't beat them with a stick, can't beat myself with a stick. And we start to become more accommodating, recognizing that people, for the most part, are trying to do the best they can, even when their best is not good enough. So I heard someone say to me at the retreat last week, he said, what I like about Buddhism is that it lets me know I'm okay just as I am. I said, I don't think he said that, I mean, we have to know how we are. And is that okay with you? So he said, well, within Christianity, he told me like I was a sinner, and I needed to be saved by grace, So if we take sinning as missing the mark, we should know if we're missing the mark. Not like to say I'm okay just as I am. It's like, dang, I missed that, And then researching until we know what the antidote is to that. And the different methods of accomplishing the antidote, bringing that into our reality. And this is what we do. Then we can be who we are, what we are, without a great deal of remorse because we have a solution. It might take some time to work through it, but we know that there is a solution. And even sometimes if we're dealing with remorse, because we can't fix everything that we've messed up, just to get to the place that one has remorse, that even is a boon. So we don't have to like wallow in our remorse, just recognize that remorse has arisen. That means that there's a shifting, there's a changing in me, that I'm becoming more aware, I'm paying attention, I'm touching others, I'm being touched by others. And so all of this will be happening, not just success, jhana in meditation, but there's a transformation, an absolute transformation occurring. The things that it occurs so gently, so softly, so minutely. One doesn't even recognize that the shift is happening. So there's no forcing, and yet it is happening. And when you look back over 6 months, look back over a year, you see how you've changed in some of your views and how your thoughts about something is different. And what used to upset you doesn't upset you so much now, or maybe not at all. And maybe now there are new things that upset you, but you know how to deal with that, how to work through that. And your confidence grows more and more and more. So I'll be silently aware in the present moment, discarding all inner speech. So as the thoughts start to rise, instead of watching them arise, watching them be there and letting them go, one can just simply mentally blink off. It's like I could be talking to you and then I hear voices out there. So I can either stay here with you at that moment, or I can tune out there to hear what they're talking about. It's just, what are you choosing to do? That's one reason why I like the idea in training for one to have their eyes closed. I like it to be as dark as it can be. So I generally have my cap, Pannavati and I, we pull it down over our eyes, or we wear an eye mask. I'm stepping away from the outer world for this bit of refreshment, for this bit of time to see what else is there in that I can touch, that I can know something, that I can learn something, that I can become different. And it's not so much that I have to do other than to present myself, to be available for silence, allowing silence to overwhelm me, to overtake me, and see what there is in that for me. And so that's the stage 2. If the chatter comes, and like what in my mind, the way I say it's like, I see that thought, thanks, I'll deal with that later this afternoon. And I'll go right back. So sometimes we talk to ourselves a little bit. After a while, we won't have to talk. It's just like the kind of mother I was. It's like we're in the grocery line, and the stores put all the candy right there at the checkout, and you got kids, because the kids gonna act out because they want candy. If you don't give them candy, they're gonna start farting out stuff, So all I had to do was give my kid a look. It wasn't that laying on the floor, I want candy, I want it now. All I had to do was turn and give them a look, and they know that's the end of that. I'm either gonna get it for you or I'm not, and you're not gonna do this. And so after a while, you can train the mind to be that way. You can just give it that look, I got it. But it has to know, like, you really mean it, like this really matters to you. You really want this, And you got to have your reasons. I'm always saying facts tell, benefits sell. You got to have your reasons. So maybe if you don't have your reasons yet, you can't do this successfully. But if you have your reasons, reminding yourself continually of your reasons. What's your reason? You got to have a reason. So then stage 3 is silent, present moment awareness of the breath. Now it's just moving from the silence straight to the breath. It says establishing mindfulness in front of one. That was I would call that the stage 2. He might call it stage 3, I'm not sure. But I would call it the stage 2, establishing mindfulness in front of one, which is, I don't want to entertain thoughts. I don't want, like when I hear that sound, to go and say, what is that? So contemporary teachers have tried to help bridge a gap between staying right here and going out to the sound to hear what's being said, by saying sound. So if that works for you, you can try that. Like when you hear a sound, something's attracted your attention, just say, oh, that's just sound. I don't have to name it. I don't have to claim it. I don't have to investigate it, because I know what I'm doing. Sound. You could do it that way. Maybe after a few times of doing that, the mind gets the message like, that's not what she wants right now. And then you hear a sound, and you just never left that spot. Like sometimes you're in a conversation with somebody, and somebody comes and starts talking, like you don't even hear them. You don't even hear them. Or they're talking, and they come and they stand right here. It's like you don't even see them. Or if you see them, like your intention is just not diverting that way, because that's not what you're doing right now. So they'll stand there for a while, and then after a while they get the idea that you're not going to stop this, break that to address them. I mean, like I get it all the time, But whoever's in front of me, I'm right there with them. That's it, And you can also tell when coming to the end of that, because then I start looking there. Oh, shouldn't have told y'all that. So this is, this is really knowing oneself, knowing what one is doing, being comfortable, knowing how much time to spend at something, knowing whether to spend any time at it, knowing how to tie off one thing before you pick up another thing, all of these kinds of things. But what one is doing is really coming to know oneself and being either okay with oneself as one is, or what correction do I need to make? What correction can I make? Sometimes we know what we need to do, but we can't quite do it yet. Just being aware that when I get better, when I get a little stronger, when I get a little more sure-footed, when I'm a little bit more at ease, when I'm, it's like that. This is a wonderful journey into the self. But then we'll find that the more we know the self, the more we will forget about the self. We'll start to see, yes, this is just a heap of something. This is just form, feel, processes going. It doesn't mean that I don't exist, but we have a way of relating to this beingness in a different way, in a way that becomes very useful, a way that one is very much at ease, and in a way that one doesn't waste so much time proliferating, like just thinking up stuff about the past, about the future, and a little bit about now, but not that much about now. Mostly past, mostly future. Even when you start thinking about now, they tell us that by the time you think of it, it's already past. What does that mean? So this stage 3, I will be aware of the breath in the present moment and discard all other perceptions. Now suddenly I am aware of the breath. For the last 55 minutes, I have not been aware of the breath. But when I say to myself, I will be aware of the breath, or I am aware of the breath, to say it is to be it. Now I feel this breath coming in and going out. As soon as I feel it coming in and going out, suddenly there's a grounding. Suddenly there's a fixed place of rest, of abiding. Not sitting over here worrying about things, yesterday, today, tomorrow, the next 30 minutes, but just by focusing on the breath, the whole body of the breath. Its intake, the whole length of the breath, and its outflow. Now the breath, it says, is the in-breath. So I'm taking it in here. And I'm establishing mindfulness right here where I'm taking it in. I'm not breathing through my side or through my this or through my that. I'm not taking it, bringing it down right now, going through my whole body like wherever. But right now, I'm following the whole body of breath. In the Visuddhimagga, it says like a sawyer saws a log. And although he saws back and forth, his eye never leaves the place where the teeth of the saw meets the blade. So he's not going like this. His eye's right there, and he's watching the whole movement of the saw as across. He said like a gatekeeper who doesn't watch people as they approach from afar, but only when they're one step outside the gate, stepping over inside the gate. Then he pays no attention to where they go. Said, let your mindfulness be like this. So as I'm taking that in-breath, I'm following the trail of that whole body of breath. As it crosses wherever I have established or set up mindfulness in front of me. Not just the beginning of that breath, not just the ending of that breath, but the whole body of breath. Paying attention that whole time. And after I do this a few times, I notice something. The whole body starts to settle down. This movement from being aware of all this to just being aware of this sets me up for a different kind of exploration. It sets me up from this to what happens after that. And now everything is within my view, but yet nothing is distracting for me at all. So there's an expansion. Not a dropping into the chasm, but there's an expansion. If you haven't gotten there, there's no place else to go. Because you got to cross that. It's like I'm trying to get to 5th Street and don't want to cross 4th Street. I got to cross 4th Street to get to 5th Street. And so maybe one could practice just at that until they're there with that, until they find the sweetness that comes with that. And then you can move on to the next stage. The gatekeeper at stage 4. And here's the thing, you got to give a little time to this. we're in good time. You have to give a little time to this, you know. I know sometimes when I'm even talking about it, like I get very soft, because you'll find that as one starts to move towards a kind of focus or concentration, that your other senses actually get more acute. Your hearing gets sharper, you know. Your seeing gets more acute. And you will see things, you know. You become more aware of everything, but yet not distracted by anything. And one should immerse themselves in this experience for a while, for quite a while, before even saying what's next. Because this is direct experience. And some of us started with it, and we got a little taste of it, and then we jumped intellectual, you know, and we're trying to read the rest of the journey, you know, or understand it mentally. But you have to go through it full-bodied, with one's full mind, and with all one's heart. It's like seeing a precious field and selling everything you have to buy it, or seeing a precious pearl and selling everything to acquire it. How much is it worth to you? One has to decide. It has to become more precious than silver and gold. And then one will give the time to it. And one will cherish it. And one will nurture it. It's like trying to build let's say you're out in the cold night and you're trying to create a little fire, you know, and they said you get little twigs, you get the sticks, make sure they're dry enough or they won't burn, this, that, and all. But all in all, you get one little thing going. And like you're trying to hold that, you're trying to blow, but hardly blowing because you don't want to blow it out. You're trying to build it up. You're trying to see which is the driest, this one's too wet, which is the driest little twig you can put that builds the flame, you know. I mean, really, you're holding it and nurturing it. And I tell you, if you do, it will not disappoint you. You will receive just what you're going after because you will have set up the conditions. How could it be any other way? And the gatekeeper then at stage 4, with full sustained attention on the breath, is told to be aware of the whole breath in every moment. And to discard anything other than the breath. And then you give yourself a short time to do this. Because the mind just quickly gets bored, especially with stuff it didn't come up with from going into its old bag of what it already knows. You know, like it gets bored. You know, so we had to find the right space of time between reminding ourselves to stay with the breath. You can't just say, stay with the breath, stay with the breath, stay with the breath. You know, nobody wants to hear that. Mind doesn't want to hear it. I'll show you. You know, and it just runs right off, you know. And he's like, I was just kidding. Come on back, come on back, come on back. You know, but you say, stay with the breath, recollecting the qualities of this moment. What is happening now? And then stop. And just feel the quality, experiencing it. Like, oh, yeah, I got it going now. Just staying with it. Until it gets sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. And the sweetness of it is the filling of the cup to overflowing. That's why it says, accompanied with applied and sustained thought. Accompanied by piti and sukha. Accompanied by this joy and this pleasure, one enters into and abides in the first jhana. You see? You're not going to be able to read your way into it, force your way into it. But you can definitely enter into it. And more becomes no, less becomes more. So we're having to learn to step back just a bit and do a little bit less and be with what is happening. What's working good, what's not working good. And he said, and when you come out, you like reflect, what just happened? And he said, I was doing good, and then doubt arose in me, and my concentration fell away. He said, then practice so that doubt does not arise. So then I have to know the doubt was arising. And he said sometimes it takes reflecting to see what happened that tossed you off, tossed you out. Another time, excess of energy. I started getting so excited. Like I was feeling so good, and I'm feeling something coming up and down my spine. I used to be Pentecostal. I know all about that. I mean, that fire felt like fire shut up in your bones. That's the truth. I wasn't Hindu or I wasn't a yoga person or nothing. I was in a Pentecostal church, but suddenly when one found that sweet spot, it was like, whoosh, and we just stopped. Then I went to the charismatics because they would do a little Shirka Key heel, all moving together, Then, we were, but I saw this group, they were like singing in tongues, hold it, and they were like, I'm like, that's contrived. They're singing in 4-part harmony. How can that be? But then after a while, then I was doing it myself. And it was like this, because it's just naturally arising, and it's not out of my control. Finding out it's in my control. Then the unction starts rising up. Unction rises up, wisdom flowing out of you, and you don't know what to do with it. And then people start yabbering, and they start prophesying, and they start talking because this very strong unction is arising, And then I had to find something to say, but you know what? But all of that is subject to the prophet. He can speak or not speak. Then I can find out, I don't have to just blab out everything that's rising up. That's just something for me to know, just because I touched the river where the wisdom was. So I come to know because I'm right there. But everything that I know is not to be said, or if it's not to be said right now, or it's not to be said to this particular group. This is something for me to know. I just inherited that. It's for me to know. And then I can decide through wisdom what should be shared and what should be kept. It's in these kinds of ways. So sometimes we don't even know what's happening. And we experience things later. When the right diligence is applied, we come to understand more fully what that was, and how to flow in that. Sometimes, we find out about it and then it unfolds in our life. And then we're like, oh, I know what this is. No need to be upset. No big deal. It's just touching that little bit of wisdom and vibrating like that. So it's going like this, and we're like this, and we get closer, and then it's like this, and then we find it's like this. And we're like in the stream. There is that river. And it comes like this, step by step. Sometimes we have inherited something in the rebirth linking consciousness. Like he said, that's why there's no point in bragging about your attainments, because you don't even know how much of it was really your effort. Like some things just hit us like a ton of bricks, and we had to unpack it or go talk to somebody and find out what just happened. He said, but that was the ripening of the seeds. Sister Claire Grace gave such a wonderful, took us through a pictorial journey of those seeds ripening and coming above the soil of our understanding, our reasoning, our recognition, and how they come up or how we can choke them off. So this week, continue to practice. This week, working with the Gatekeeper in all 4 stages, and I have explained it to you today, according to Ajahn Brahm, and also according to the Pali Suttas. May you have success with your practice this week.